Life has a way of turning when you least expect it. One moment, you're living your dreams, surrounded by everything you thought you wanted, and the next, you're thrown into a whirlwind of emotions, choices, and decisions that seem to spin out of your control. It's as though fate has a mind of its own, and it doesn't always follow your plans. This is the story of Annabelle, a woman caught between love, sacrifice, and a family scandal that could ruin everything. A day of dreams and disasters. Annabelle had always lived a simple life. Growing up in a small town, she never imagined that one day, she'd find herself at the center of a storm that would change everything she knew. Vivian, her older sister, was getting married that day. The house was filled with laughter, excitement, and the unmistakable tension of wedding preparations. For Anna, it was a day to celebrate love. Vivian had found the man of her dreams. Ted Crus, a successful, charming man everyone adored. But as the ceremony began, the unthinkable happened. Vivian, overwhelmed by a secret she could no longer carry, vanished without a trace. The guests, the family, and Ted were left in stunned silence as the realization set in. Vivian was gone. It wasn't just a disappearance, it was a betrayal, a scandal. The small town that had been waiting for the perfect wedding now whispered behind closed doors, eyes locked on Anna's family, waiting for their next move. In the midst of the chaos, Anna's family was left with only one option: to salvage what little honor they had left. Anna, ever the dutiful daughter, agreed to step in for her sister. She would marry Ted. It was a shocking, selfless act. But it wasn't driven by love. No, Anna's heart belonged to someone else, her boyfriend, Job. Ted, on the other hand, wasn't in love with Anna either. His heart was still with Vivian. To him, Anna was a placeholder, a substitute. Marrying her felt like a betrayal to the woman he'd lost. Their marriage was nothing more than a tragic obligation. A union born from scandal and desperation, not love. Every glance, every word, every action felt like an emotional battlefield. The strangers in a shared life. As Anna and Ted lived under the same roof, their marriage became a constant struggle. Their lives were a tangled web of resentment and bitterness. Anna, who sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of family, felt trapped in a life she didn't choose. Ted, lost in his grief for Vivian, treated Anna like an invisible presence in his life. He was consumed by the image of the woman who had disappeared, and he couldn't see Anna for who she truly was, someone with her own dreams, her own heartache. But as the days turned into weeks, something unexpected began to happen. Slowly, Anna's strength and compassion started to break through Ted's hardened shell. He saw glimpses of the woman beneath the surface, not just the stand-in for Vivian, but a woman who was strong, independent, and willing to sacrifice everything for those she loved. Ted too began to open up. Beneath his anger, he revealed his own pain, the raw emotions of losing someone he thought he would spend his life with. Slowly, they began to understand each other, two strangers who had been thrown into a marriage neither wanted, now starting to find common ground. A love rekindled, a bond tested just as Anna and Ted started to break down the walls that divided them. Vivian returned. Her return was like a storm, stirring up emotions, reopening old wounds, and reintroducing everything they had worked to leave behind. Vivian, seemingly unaffected by the chaos she had left in her wake, hoped to rekindle her past with Ted. To her, it was as if nothing had changed. But to Ted, her sudden reappearance was both a relief and a painful reminder of what he had lost. For Anna, it was a betrayal. She had spent so much of herself trying to hold everything together, sacrificing her own happiness to marry Ted. Now, she found herself once again on the outside of their bond, a mere substitute for the woman Ted had never stopped loving. The tension in the house was palpable. Ted and Vivian's old feelings reignited, and Anna, heartbroken and confused, found herself standing on the sidelines of her own life. And as if the situation wasn't complicated enough, Anna began to uncover buried secrets, dark, painful truths about her family and Ted's past. Secrets that, if revealed, could shatter the fragile peace they had started to build. The secrets twisted the knife further into Anna's heart. The pain of betrayal, the uncertainty of what had been uncovered, and the fear of losing everything weighed heavily on her. The walls they had started to tear down began to rise again, stronger and taller than before, each brick a reminder of the wounds they had yet to heal. Love, loss, and the power of sacrifice. As Ted grappled with his feelings for Vivian, he began to realize that his love for her was no longer the anchor it once was. His heart had been broken, and he had tried to build a life around a woman who was no longer there. But what he had found with Anna, what they had built together, was something entirely different. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real. Anna too was forced to confront her own feelings. She had entered this marriage out of duty, but in the process she discovered something deep within herself, a strength she hadn't known she possessed. She wasn't just a placeholder in Ted's life. She was her own person, and despite the sacrifice, she had begun to realize that she was capable of building a life on her own terms. But could she find happiness with a man who had never truly loved her? Could Ted and Anna rebuild a life together, or had their wounds cut too deep? The emotional struggle was far from over. Vivian's return had stirred up everything Anna and Ted had worked to rebuild, but it was also forcing them to confront the painful truths of their past. Their marriage, once born of obligation, had the potential to evolve into something more, but it would take sacrifice, healing, and time. The unlikely path to love. In the end, Anna and Ted were left to face their pasts and the choices they had made. They were forced to decide if the connection they had begun to build was strong enough to withstand the storms life had thrown at them. Could they find a way to let go of their anger and resentment and build something that resembled love? Through pain, sacrifice, and emotional growth, Anna and Ted learned that love doesn't always follow the path you expect. Sometimes, love finds you in the most unlikely of places, in a marriage you never wanted, in a person you never expected. Love isn't perfect, but it's real. It's messy. And when built on a foundation of trust and understanding, it has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. Anna and Ted's journey teaches us that love is not something you can control. It doesn't always come in the form you imagine. Sometimes it's messy, complicated, and difficult. But when you embrace love, despite the pain, despite the sacrifices, it has the power to heal. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive when you expect it, but when it does, it's more powerful than anything you could have planned. Don't run from love. Let it find you, even in the most unexpected places. If you find this story interesting, please subscribe to this channel for more revealing stories.